Addiction rarely announces itself with a loud warning or an obvious turning point. Most often it begins subtly, almost invisibly, as a coping mechanism, a comfort, or a seemingly harmless habit. At first it feels manageable. It feels like relief from stress, a brief escape from discomfort, or a way to numb emotional pain. The first drink, the extra cigarette, the late-night scroll, the impulse purchase, or the repeated indulgence in a behavior may appear innocent, even harmless. You tell yourself that it's just temporary, just a phase, or that it helps you handle life better. But slowly, almost imperceptibly, the habit starts to weave itself into the fabric of your daily life. What was once a choice gradually becomes a necessity, and its influence quietly begins to shape your thoughts, priorities, and sense of identity. The first step toward breaking free is awareness, truly seeing the impact of the habit on your life. Awareness is not judgment or self-blame. It is a recognition, a sober acknowledgement of the control that this pattern has begun to exert over your actions, decisions, and emotions. Addiction is powerful precisely because it operates in the background of your consciousness. You may not even realize how many decisions are being influenced by it. The meals you skip, the people you avoid, the moments of joy you miss, all of these subtle losses accumulate, quietly eroding your freedom and sense of self. But when you pause, when you reflect honestly, and when you admit to yourself, even if only quietly, that something has been controlling you, you take the first step toward liberation. This moment of realization is not a moment of weakness, it is a moment of courage. It is the instant where the illusion of control begins to break, revealing the truth your choices matter more than the habit that has been guiding them. It is important to understand that this awareness does not mean that you are failing. On the contrary, it means you are waking up to your own life. For many, the realization comes with discomfort, guilt, or even shame, because admitting that a habit has power over you can feel like admitting a personal flaw. But true freedom begins with self-compassion, not self-judgment. Recognizing that the habit has taken hold is simply recognizing that change is possible. It is the acknowledgement that you can start reclaiming your life moment by moment, decision by decision. This realization also brings clarity about the nature of control. Addiction does not only manipulate your actions, it manipulates your perception of reality. It convinces you that temporary relief is more valuable than long-term well-being. It can distort priorities and create a false sense of security. But the instant you become aware of this influence, you reclaim the power to choose differently. Awareness is the spark that ignites change. It is the point where the habit stops running your life unconsciously and you begin to take back ownership of your time, your energy, and your choices. The moment of realization is the foundation for transformation. It is the seed of conscious action, the first sign that you are no longer willing to let the habit dictate your life. From this point forward, every decision, every pause, and every act of honesty with yourself will build the bridge from dependency to freedom. This moment is your awakening. And it is where the journey to never letting addiction control you again begins. Once the initial realization hits, the next step is understanding the triggers and patterns that feed addiction. Addiction rarely exists in isolation. It thrives on certain emotional, mental, or environmental conditions. Stress, boredom, loneliness, anxiety, and unresolved trauma are common. Triggers that push you toward the familiar relief that the habit provides. Even when life seems fine on the surface, underlying tensions or unaddressed emotions can silently lead you back into patterns that undermine your freedom. Understanding these triggers is not about labeling yourself as weak. It's about gaining clarity on the mechanics of your behavior. Clarity is power. Without it, any attempt to change remains reactive, uncertain, and fragile. Triggers can be external, such as places, people, or situations that have been historically linked to the habit. Walking past a bar, scrolling through social media, hearing a particular song, or even engaging in certain conversations can automatically evoke cravings or impulses. These cues are deeply embedded in the brain's reward system, creating a loop that feels automatic. But they are not unchangeable. By observing patterns, noticing the cues, and reflecting on how each situation makes you feel, you begin to dismantle the illusion that you are powerless. You recognize that these triggers are signals, not commands. Each signal is an opportunity to pause, breathe, and choose consciously, rather than react unconsciously. Internal triggers are just as significant. Emotions such as stress, fear, shame, or self-doubt often act as fuel for addictive behaviors. The habit becomes a coping mechanism, a temporary anesthetic for discomfort that feels too heavy to face. Many people grow accustomed to suppressing these emotions rather than processing them. Addiction becomes a form of self-soothing, offering immediate relief while hiding the deeper work that needs to be done. But when you begin observing these internal triggers without judgment, you create space for healing. You start to recognize that discomfort is not dangerous. It is informative. It signals what needs attention, processing, or release. And when you face these feelings consciously, the grip of addiction gradually loosens. Understanding patterns also involves noticing cycles of behavior. Often, addictive actions are not isolated events, but repetitive loops reinforced by habit, reward, and avoidance. The brain learns to expect the relief provided by the habit whenever a trigger appears. This reinforcement makes the pattern automatic and persistent. However, patterns can be interrupted. By mapping out your behaviors, identifying when and why they occur, and experimenting with healthier alternatives, you reclaim control. The repetition no longer dictates your choices, awareness does. Another key aspect is recognizing the role of avoidance. Addiction often serves as a distraction from discomfort, responsibility, or self-reflection. The habit temporarily silences inner conflict, but it also prevents growth. By staying present with difficult thoughts and emotions, even when uncomfortable, you train yourself to respond consciously instead of reacting reflexively. This is where true empowerment begins. You learn to meet challenges with clarity and resilience, rather than automatically turning to a habit for relief. Ultimately, understanding triggers and patterns transforms your relationship with addiction. You move from feeling controlled to being conscious, from reacting to responding, and from avoiding reality to embracing it. This awareness lays the groundwork for lasting change, creating the foundation for a life where addiction no longer holds authority over your choices. Once you have rebuilt your mindset, strengthened your inner resilience, and cultivated emotional awareness, the final step is learning how to live free and maintain lasting control over your life. True freedom from addiction is not just about abstaining from a substance or behavior. It is about reclaiming your power, establishing healthy patterns, and aligning your actions with your values consistently. It is the ability to navigate life with clarity, presence, and self-respect. No matter the circumstances, living free begins with conscious daily choices. Freedom is not a one-time achievement, but a continuous practice. Every day offers an opportunity to choose alignment over habit, awareness over autopilot, and self-care over immediate gratification. By developing a structured routine that prioritizes your well-being, you create a foundation that naturally supports lasting control. This may include consistent sleep, physical activity, meditation, journaling, and mindful engagement in work, hobbies, and relationships. Each intentional action reinforces your autonomy and strengthens the neural pathways that support self-control. Another critical aspect is building a supportive environment. Addiction often thrives in chaotic, unsupportive, or triggering contexts. By curating your surroundings, both physical and social, You remove unnecessary obstacles and reduce vulnerability to relapse. This includes spending time with people who respect your boundaries, avoid enabling behaviors, and encourage your growth. It also involves creating spaces at home, work, and in your social life that foster calm, focus, and intentional living. The environment you inhabit has a profound influence on your energy, mindset, and capacity to remain in control. Maintaining freedom also requires ongoing self-reflection. Regularly checking in with your emotions, desires, and thought patterns allows you to notice early signs of stress, temptation, or imbalance. Awareness acts as an internal early warning system, helping you address small issues before they escalate. Reflection can take many forms, such as journaling, meditation, or honest conversations with trusted mentors or friends. By consistently monitoring your internal state, you ensure that your choice is remain aligned with your true self rather than reactive impulses. Equally important is embracing personal growth and life purpose. Addiction often fills a void left by unmet needs or unfulfilled potential. By consciously engaging in meaningful work, creative pursuits, or acts of service, you replace the void with purpose and fulfillment. A strong sense of purpose provides motivation that transcends momentary cravings and reinforces long-term freedom. When your life feels rich, intentional, and deeply aligned with your values, the hold of addiction naturally diminishes. Learning to live free also involves mastering emotional regulation. Life will continue to present challenges, stress, and unexpected events. Addiction often offered temporary relief from discomfort, but now you develop the tools to face life without dependence. This includes recognizing emotions without judgment, allowing yourself to feel fully, and responding with clarity rather than avoidance. Techniques such as mindful breathing, grounding exercises, and cognitive reframing strengthen your capacity to remain present and centered. Over time, you learn that discomfort is temporary and manageable, and that self-soothing and reflection replace the need for external crutches. Finally, living free is about embracing your identity as someone in control of their own life. You internalize the understanding that addiction does not define you. Your choices, actions, and values define who you are. With this mindset, each moment becomes an opportunity to act with intention, reinforcing your freedom and confidence. You no longer feel powerless. Instead, you approach life from a place of strength, clarity, and alignment. By integrating daily intention, supportive environments, self-reflection, purposeful living, emotional mastery, and identity transformation, you create a life where addiction has no power over you. You reclaim control, and each conscious choice compounds into a sustainable, empowered, and fulfilling way of being. From this foundation, you will never let addiction control you again, because your life is anchored in awareness, strength, and personal sovereignty.